better brand, better design, better functionality, whatever it might be, that has a better technological value. What does that do? It tips the competition to favour B. So this time they're indifferent at 60-40, but at any other market share it'll tip. Does that make sense? So you can start moving these curves around, and the idea is that you can figure out who is likely to win based on the relative technological value and the steepness of the curves, because these curves have different steepness. So there is a special case when two dominant designs can survive, and this is a special case. The classic example is games consoles that Ettore mentioned, and the question is whether operating systems are a bit like this or not. So what's the difference between this one and the next one? This time we've got the technological value is the same, so that's not a big difference. Right? With this one, the technological value is different. We've got tech value of A, the tech value of B is bigger. But this time we're saying, no, you know what? Technologically, in terms of consumer acceptance or whatever, they're about the same. But what's different about this curve? The steepness. You see how steep this is? Okay, it starts here, it goes shooting straight up, and then at some point it doesn't really matter if new people adopt or not. Do you see how that's a different shaped curve from this one? Here A is kind of flat, it kind of goes up gradually, whereas this one, it's steep. Yeah? So what this one says is, sometimes the network value, the network externality value, can flatten out. At some point, it doesn't matter to consumers if you can get 100,000 apps, 200,000 apps, 300,000 apps, 1 million apps. At some point, it doesn't really matter. At some point, enough of your friends are on BBM that another friend joining doesn't matter. At some point, you've got enough friends on Facebook. It doesn't matter if another person joins. It doesn't make you any more likely to join because the value, the network externality value to you is kind of tapped out, if you like. If that happens, you can end up with an indifference region. Instead of an indifference region being a point, there can be this whole range of indifference region. And you end up in a situation where A can dominate in some parts of the market and B dominates in other parts of the market, and they coexist. Does that make sense? The example here is games consoles. So the major competitors, there's actually 3 major competitors, right? Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft. Is that in this room, the phone? Or is it outside? It's outside, okay. I can see you all looking. It's an externality. So we've got 3 different manufacturers of game consoles, which is it's an interesting situation compared to in the PC world, where we've only really got Microsoft. Okay, we've got some marginal players, but really Microsoft dominates. So what is it that's different between games consoles and Microsoft? And what's different is that the value at which the network externality taps out for consumers is lower in the games consoles market than it is. The market share you need, see here, this curve flattens out at like 30% here compared to in the last graph where it flattened out at like 70%. So if the value really taps out, you get to about 30% market share. There's enough complementary goods, enough installed base, everybody's happy. You can have one standard with 30% and another standard with 30%.
There's 2 funny things about the gaming consoles actually, because they each have very different technical value.
Yeah.
That differentiates them.
Yeah.
And a few years back, you wouldn't talk about direct network effects in game console markets at all.
Yeah.
You want indirect network effects, the more users, the more games will be developed. But nowadays, where you can play together.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that works with different consoles. We can play the same game with different consoles online. I don't think we can.
I don't think you can either, and I think that's one of the things, though, but that's also kind of mentioned in some of the materials for today, or I read it somewhere in the last few days. Say at some point there's enough people online to do the direct gaming, there's enough people in the network to do the direct gaming, we don't really need more than 30% of the market share, or let's say 30% of the market share, to make it, to get the additional value. You don't need everybody to get that value. So this explains why sometimes you'd end up with dominant design. So the next, sometimes it works out that you have two if this in this indifference region here, so when market share between, for A is between say 30 and 60%, consumers don't really mind, and the two standards can coexist with market shares of between 30 and 60% each. It's possible that this is where we'll end up with operating systems in the mobile industry, or it's possible that we'll end up with something like this, where it tips to one side or the other. Does that make sense? You're looking a little bit blankly. I know I haven't done curves with you before, but I feel like I've got to sometimes. Does that make sense? So the question is, where do you think we'll be? Do you think we'll have both Apple operating systems and Android operating systems? Ettore pitched this to us right at the front. I mean, I know you believe that it doesn't matter, this is irrelevant, we'll have both. We'll have
Maybe
both.
3.
Sorry?
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3. What would the third one be? Is there a third
Microsoft.
candidate up there? Microsoft. Maybe. Oh, actually, I'm going to come back to you again because you've got tablet data. I know you've got there. So just because so on the tablet side, fourth quarter of 2011, market share for Apple was 57.
Yes, 57.5.
Android
39.1.
and Microsoft
It's 1.5.
1.5. Okay, so they're not big.
It's increased from 0.0 to 1.5.
Okay, so they're starting. But, I mean, they have a lot of, you would expect them to be a player in this space. It's kind of interesting that we're not even considering Microsoft as a player in this space.
Yeah, but the best thing Microsoft is doing is put together with Windows 8, put together everything, tablet, computer, and smartphone.
Right, so we'll see if that takes off though as an idea. Because, and this is what we'll come to next week, maybe Apple will have an advantage because they're doing that first through the cloud. Or they're doing, they already have it up and moving.
If talking about the future, I don't believe, like personally, I don't believe that Apple will give up on the big market share. Never. I don't see that, personally. So.
Not on purpose.
I think, I believe that they will do everything they are able for and not able for to keep the big market share.
What do we think? Do we think we're going to end up with Android and Apple? I mean, you're saying they'll end up with the big market share. The question is whether they take it all, like Microsoft did with Windows. They won't. They won't what?
They won't take the whole market because they are actually, well, their target are high-end devices.
Okay.
And, well, when it comes to Android, they actually target both. So high-end devices, you can buy a high-end Android smartphone, but at the same time, you can also buy low-end, much cheaper Android phones.
Okay.
And I think that's how Android actually gains market share.
Yes.
Because I've actually checked it right now, and it's a US market, so Android has 53% of the market share of all smartphones. So I think that's mostly because of the low-end smartphones that they were selling very cheaply.
And in our class here, it was more like 70-30 at best.
Yeah.
80-20 really, probably. Until you all upgrade the phones next time, and we see where we are this time next year. This is the trouble with my examples, right? I have dynamic examples, so I never know what's going to happen. This is an open question. Probably, I take the point about different market positioning, I take the point about different players. It may well be that there's room for more than one operating system. Here, it may well be that the network effects around mobile operating systems are more similar to games consoles than they are to PCs. That's what we're kind of concluding. Because at some point it taps out. As long as there are enough apps and there are enough people adopting a particular standard to be able to keep that standard, keep the updates coming, to keep the standard kind of pushing forward, that people are adopting it. As long as there are enough people doing that, then maybe they will settle into different market positions. But you know what? Apple has been here before, and they messed up last time. And I completely agree that Apple didn't on purpose give up the situation, but you know what? Kodak didn't give up that situation on purpose. And they completely, we already told the Kodak story. Right? So it's not uncommon to have a low-end disruption that starts off at the lower end of the market and then gradually, we even talked about Ryanair in this class, I think. Ryanair comes in, market capitalization is now bigger than British Airways. Okay, so.
But don't you think Nintendo gave away their position? Because they were the dominant players in the game console market in the mid sort of like accepted it's sort of like third, not too far off from the pace, but it's third and it's carved out a niche for itself
Yeah.
in that way. But I think sort of like Xbox and Sony are sort of like the two dominant ones because I don't, yeah.
I think it depends on which bit of the market you're looking at. So if you're looking at like what I would call a hardcore gaming market, so the
That's
shoot
why
'em
I
up
said-
games, the
that's why-
high-end
yeah.
graphics, the integrated, the gaming system integrated with DVD player, Blu-ray, integrated with fancy sound processing, all the rest of it, then yes, really it's Sony versus Microsoft, so the PlayStation versus Xbox, or versions of that in terms of the standards. But if you're looking at number of households that own a games machine, actually Nintendo scores very well. So it depends.
Isn't that partly because they threw it in the hand?
Yeah,
They're still
it's
the most
completely
dominant one
because
in the
they did
handheld.
the classic blue ocean move, right? I mean, it's not so many years ago that I stood in a class and told the story about, oh, this brand new product called the Wii, and it's going to completely break open how we think about games consoles. It's going to open up family market, it's going to open up women's market, it's going to open up fitness market. And it did. Now, of course, you see Xbox coming back in with, is it called Kinect?
Yeah.
Yeah? Has anybody tried that? I haven't played with it. Yeah, is it good? Yeah? You see, this is one of the reasons I teach this stuff, right? Is I get to play with all the yeah? So I haven't played with the toys yet. There is something to be said there, and you know, the analogy that we're making in here is that it's a different market position.
Because sounds rather sad, but I used to have myself as a Nintendo only person.
Yeah.
Because I used to have all the consoles until sort of like the GameCube, and then I switched to PlayStation. I'm just at the same age now, but it's sort of I was very much Nintendo, and then I moved to PlayStation because I sort of like saw those guys that were like dominant.
Yeah.
Sort of like
Exactly, and maybe that's true for the particular market niche and the customer needs that you had. And so that's what we see. We do see different standards. In that's an example of different standards that are aimed at different markets. They actually are quite functionally quite different. They're built on different technologies. And Nintendo has made the strategic decision to not play in that head-to-head war, and instead to carve out actually a classic example of a blue ocean. Classic example. And who knows, maybe that's what will happen here. Like, how long will it be before next week we're going to talk about smart payments, and we're not all that far away from having the whole thing embedded in a chip inside ourselves. It's quite terrifying, actually. Maybe that'll be a new place to go. Now then, I should conclude here. I'm going to ask you not to pack up and such, though, because I'm expecting Lorna to come on to do the module feedback today. So don't rush out of the room because we need your feedback. But what we're on about today is increasing returns to adoption arising from learning curve. Here she is. Excellent. I've just concluded. Give me 30 seconds and then it's over to you. So increasing returns to adoption arising from learning curve effects, so learning how to do something better, learning as an organization, as a company, and also the customer's learning. And network externalities, and it's those network externalities that give us the curves that we were just talking about. Can lead to winner-take-all markets, or can lead to a situation where more than one standard can coexist. And when we talk about mobile operating systems, the jury's still out, we'll just have to see. And so, you know, I can tell a class in 5 years' time what you lot thought in the same way as I'm telling you about what the Nintendo Wii people thought that this was going to be a great thing. Ongoing standard towards mobile operating systems. I'm putting mobile payment systems into next week because it's a slightly different industry, so we'll talk about it. I just realized it's going to muddy the water. So we'll use mobile payment systems as an example of first mover advantage. It's another standards battle that's going on at the moment. So next time, first mover or fast second. There's a chapter in the book. There's a paper. I'm actually having trouble with this paper because I was going to upload it, and then I realized that the library subscription to this journal expired on February the 12th of this year, i.e. since I wrote it. So I'm going to have to come up with something else. By the end of the day, there will be something else. That's all we can know. Okay? For now, read the chapter, and we'll take it over from there. And with that, over to Laura.
Thank you.
Make the paper.